The current Amazing Spider-Man run is written by Nick Spencer and is an amazing soft reboot to the character and his history. And during this soft reboot, Nick Spencer is spending a lot of time reintroducing us to various characters within Spider-Man's mythos, from Mary Jane to Black Cat, and today, J. Jonah Jameson. Today we're going to find out a little bit more about J. Jonah Jameson and his current relationship to Spider-Man, as he knows his identity thanks to a different event that happened a little while ago. It's also going to be setting up our next storyline, Spider-Man Hunted. If you're wondering where you are, well, you have found the Comicstorian channel, where we do the complete story series, where I take trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into dramatic bites for you. I give them back to you as an audio drama. We have a lot of fun here. If you enjoy this, please give the video a like and let's get on with the show. With the Thieves Guild taken care of and things between Black Cat patched up, Spider-Man can finally enjoy the holiday season as Christmas comes to New York. It's time for everyone to be filled with holiday spirit. And what better way to share that feeling than letting the good people of New York know that J. Jonah Jameson supports Spider-Man as a hero? That's right. J. Jonah Jameson, former publisher of the Daily Planet, the man who used to tell everyone how Spider-Man was New York's webbed menace, is now one of the good guys. Kind of. He learned the truth about Spider-Man, what his secret identity was, and Jonah changed his tune. And he used his talk radio show to tell everyone that Spider-Man is in fact a hero. Yep, that's Jonah. New song, same dance. But today is special. Today, after educating the masses, Jonah receives a letter at the station from the Century Club. He opens it up, and as he reads it, his eyes widen. He hasn't been back to the club since they revoked his membership, but this is an invitation from Mayor Fisk to hold a banquet in his honor. He shouts, asking, "Do you know what this means? I'm finally getting the respect that I deserve. A Lifetime Achievement Award. It's about time. It's just like I always said, that Wilson Fisk, he's a great mayor." But while Jonah basks in his own glory, across town, Spider-Man finds himself fighting against the villain Hippo over a doll. So, to give a little context, a certain toy company started a new line of dolls to show off the softer side of everyone's favorite world-threatening menaces, like this Galactus doll. And when pressed, it says, "Galactus hungers for friendship," really sending out some mixed signals here. But these things are a hit, like Tickle Me Elmo level, so it's no surprise that everyone is fighting for them. After grabbing a hold of the doll, Hippo tramples over Spider-Man to escape, but everyone knows a few well-placed web shots can stop almost anything. Spider-Man takes the doll and hands it back to the young boy, and he thinks to himself that this is why he does what he does, to help and... However, only seconds after leaving and still well within earshot of the boy, Spider-Man can hear him auctioning off the stupid doll. Later that night, Spider-Man heads to Robbie Robertson's house to spend the holidays, but just before dinner is ready, the two sit down to watch the news. It's there that they see a reporter interviewing Jonah on his lifetime achievement, when he shouts that Spider-Man's always going to be there, because I guarantee it. So a short while later, Jonah gets out of his limo and he smiles back, stating, "I'm back." And Spider-Man swings over, telling him, "You sure are. This is just like the old days, really. Anyway, we need to talk." The two duck into an alley and Jonah asks, what does he want? "We need to be quick before all the food is gone." Spider-Man tells him that that's the thing, he's not going inside with him. Jonah shouts, asking, "What are you talking about? Spider-Man owes me. I was out there trying to fix your disaster of a reputation." Spider-Man stops him. "Yeah, you're the one who made it a disaster in the first place. Besides, this is the Kingpin. We both know this is a trap. I would never be caught with him." Jonah starts looking behind Spider-Man at the billboard, and when Spider-Man turns around, he sees a sign with him and Kingpin on it stating, "I heart Fisk. Re-elect Fisk." Spider-Man tells him, "Okay, that was clearly photoshopped, Jonah." And Jonah tells him, "Spider-Man, look, too bad. You aren't gonna miss my moment of spotlight because of some old grudge. It's high time that I was recognized for my accomplishments. Now it's time for us to..." But just as Jonah begins to walk inside, a whip wraps around his leg, tripping him. When Jonah and Spider-Man look back, Fancy Dan says, "Webbs, Jameson," and Montana tells them, "Happy holidays from the Enforcers." Jonah shouts to Spider-Man to get them, and Spider-Man shouts, "Fine, but not because you asked." It doesn't take Spider-Man long to deal with the three would-be criminals, but Fancy Dan has another idea to get to them. He takes out a gun, stating, if he can't beat them, give them something to mourn about. He points the gun at Jonah, so Spider-Man jumps in the way to take the shot, and he feels his leg ground. Ox slams Spider-Man to the ground, punching him until he passes out. And a short while later, he wakes up with Jonah telling him, "It's about time, just like your generation, to sleep on the job. I need you to pull yourself together and come up with a plan to get us out of here. You are the one who got us into this mess." Spider-Man tells him, "I'm pretty sure this one's your fault." But just as his spider sense goes off, a voice calls out to Jonah telling him, "This is your story." Spider-Man and Jonah get up and start running from Scorpion and dozens of human flies, with Jonah asking, "How do you always get me into these messes, Spider-Man?" Spider-Man tells him, "Me? Did you not hear the mysterious voice? It clearly said, J. Jonah Jameson, this is your story. After a bit of running, the two notice that the bad guys have stopped following them. They then stop and ask, where did they go? But just then a light shines and another voice begins to speak. It starts with humble beginnings, a young boy abandoned by his biological father. The two stare at an image of Jonah as the boy is being sent off to live with his aunt and uncle. The voice continues telling the story of Jonah and his life. Spider-Man asks, what is this? Jonah watches it stating, I'm not sure, but I like it. As the memories play out, it begins to show all of what Jonah has gone through. From the time that he had his son John, to when his first wife Joan was shot by a masked gunman. Next was Jonah's rise in the Daily Bugle, lowly reporter to editor-in-chief. Then came the news of that webbed menace Spider-Man. Even though Jonah told the world that Spider-Man was nothing more than a masked vigilante, real heroes supported him. After a while, he took things into his own hands. He helped develop the Scorpion formula and then the Spider Slayers. But even after all of that, something changed. Jonah had become a traitor. He told everyone that Spider-Man was now a hero, and he shouts asking, how dare they slander my name? The images fade, and soon Spider-Man and Jonah find themselves back in the real world, fighting against Scorpion, the Human Flies, and the Spider Slayers. Spider-Man punches one of the Human Flies, stating that he's seen this before. All of these clowns are either LMDs or clones, but Scorpion, he's the real deal. Scorpion tells him, yeah, I am. Real angry. And he smacks Spider-Man with his tail. As Spider-Man is knocked into the Spider Slayers, he says at least he can die by these when they're not piloted by, wait, that's it. If these things are as authentic as they seem, then they should respond to commands from their old owner. Spider-Man calls out to Jonah to grab the remote, asking if he remembers how to control these things. Jonah picks it up, telling him, of course I do. I practically invented these things. Just then, the Spider Slayers turn back, attacking the Human Flies. And Jonah laughs, stating, see, I still got it. But while Jonah deals with him, Scorpion gets back up and tackles Spider-Man into the wall. Spider-Man punches him off and Scorpion whips his tail into the wall again, then hitting Spider-Man in the head as the tail comes back to sting. Spider-Man grabs a hold of it, kicking Scorpion up and knocking him into the wall. Spider-Man jumps up, stating, okay, what's next? And a voice calls out, congratulations, hope you enjoyed the opening act. Time for the real fun. A second later, a giant foot knocks in the wall and the massive Big Man towers over the two of them, stating, now that Big Man is back. Spider-Man jumps up, but before he can get away, Big Man grabs him by the leg, slamming him into the ground and walls. As Big Man is holding him there, he says, look at the web menace now. Look, Jonah, watch him squirm. Just like you said, someday he'd make a mistake and you would be there waiting. Jonah thinks for a moment and says, those words, Foswell? Just then a door opens up and a man steps out telling him, that's right, Frederick Foswell Jr. to be precise. My father is Frederick Foswell Sr. Foswell was one of the best reporters the Daily Bugle ever had. He almost even figured out who Spider-Man was. He had this trick of designing elaborate costumes for undercover assignments that ironically led to his downfall. Big Man was one of those disguises, and Foswell used the tips that he'd get as a journalist to start building a criminal empire. He eventually got caught and released. Jonah gave him back his old job. But sadly, it wasn't long before he slipped back into his old ways. He did redeem himself in the end by sacrificing himself to save Jonah. Frederick shouts, and this is it! Spider-Man is the real criminal here. He was the one who framed my father and ruined his good name. Spider-Man is the one responsible for his death, and now we can avenge him together. Frederick pulls out a gun from his vest, telling Jonah, this was the gun that killed my father. Let us end this story together by ending the life of the masked monster. As Frederick points the gun, though, Jonah asks, what have you done? Your father was a good man. He was one of the best journalists out there. But he was a criminal, Foswell. Frederick Foswell Sr. was the Big Man. I saw it with my own eyes. He fell into the identity and grew addicted to the sense of power it gave him. He tried to go straight, but cracked under the pressure. It led us to that fateful night with the Kingpin, with him dying in my arms. But that's the thing. I was the one who applied that pressure. I hounded him to try and keep on the right path. The truth is, I was Foswell's worst enemy. But even still, I took the bullet that was intended for him. So if anyone's responsible for Foswell's death, point that gun over here. Frederick shouts, shut up, you're lying. And Jonah tells him, I wish I was. But the only lies I've ever told were about Spider-Man. Spider-Man is innocent. Frederick yells, fine, if I can't get the truth about my father's murder, then I'll just kill the both of you. But before Frederick could fire, Jonah hits the remote for the Spider Slayers to grab onto Frederick. Spider-Man quickly grabs the gun, webbing up Jonah's shoulder. Jonah yells, gah! That's disgusting! Frederick screams that he won't let his father's murderers get away. I will have my revenge, even if I have to go with you. Just then, the self-destruct sequences on the giant Big Man begin, and Spider-Man jumps up, pushing Big Man back. He begins to web up as much of Big Man as he can, and he pulls using all of his strength until finally, it budges. As Big Man is thrown, it self-destructs, narrowly killing all three of them. A short while later, after getting some medical attention, Jonah sits with Spider-Man, telling him that little Freddy needs help, not a jail cell. Spider-Man tells him that he'll see what he can do, but it's not like anyone really listens to him given his public relations and all. Jonah then says that all of this damage in that poor kid is all our fault. How are we supposed to make this right, Spider-Man? Spider-Man sighs. It wasn't all bad. You're still the same guy that gave Foswell Sr. a second chance. Plenty of people wouldn't have done that. Heck, you gave me a shot. You stood against mobsters and terrorists. You stuck with your principles even when it got you into everything. We all have our flaws, even if it involved building killer robots and funding genetic experiments that would wind up creating supervillains. Point is, and this is from someone who knows about making big life-altering mistakes, you're gonna drive yourself crazy thinking about who you were yesterday, when what matters is who you are today, Jonah. Jonah took Spider-Man's advice and he went into Fisk's banquet, and instead of being buddy-buddy with him, told everyone the truth of how Kingpin is still a crook. However, the story doesn't just end with Jonah getting his confidence back. While all of that was happening, Taskmaster and Black Ant appear before Scorpion. Scorpion lunges at the two of them, asking what do they want, because if they're looking for trouble. But before he could finish, Taskmaster shoots him with a dart, knocking him out. When Scorpion wakes up, he finds himself in a cell, and he jumps up shouting to let him out. A voice tells them not to bother. Scorpion looks over to see Vulture, and he finishes stating, "Even if you did get out, they just hunt you down again. And along with him, every other criminal sitting in the shadows." So this, out of all of the Amazing Spider-Man stories that Nick Spencer has done, was actually the one that I liked the least. And that's probably just because I don't like J. Jonah Jameson that much. So having a 3-issue arc about the character just for me was not that great. But overall, Nick Spencer has been doing an amazing job with the Amazing Spider-Man run. The first story arc was okay, but then we got the Mary Jane, we got the Black Cat stuff, we got the heist stuff. All that stuff was great. I loved all of that. And the current run that's going on, the Hunted storyline, is also pretty amazing. I'm enjoying every bit of that. So let me know in the comments down below what you think about what Nick Spencer is doing with the Amazing Spider-Man. And if you want more comic books, video games, movies explained to you in a very weird, dramatic way, follow the Comicstorian channel right here at Comicstorian.